Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance. So sit back, relax and enjoy some satisfying stories. Only English in your household. This story happened a few years ago. I used to work for a well-known alarm company doing installs when we got a new guy in. He seemed fresh off the boat with terrible English, and me being fluent in Russian, he got tagged with me. The cast: me, Ivan the new guy, and Karen the homeowner. The background: I've been working with Ivan for a few weeks before the malicious compliance. We spoke Russian between each other, but changed to English whenever the customer was around to maintain professionalism. Most customers were okay with this, as you could tell Ivan was struggling with the language, and I would do all the talking to the customer until we got to Karen. That day, it started out just like any other. We get to the house, a lady greets us at the door. Didn't know at the time this was Karen as there were no signs. Do a walk around and everything seems fine. Ivan has not spoke a single word yet. We get to work in the basement and I start talking to Ivan like usual. Not even 5 minutes later, Karen comes running down the stairs demanding that we stop talking in whatever, and this is an English talking household and she does not want her kids to hear it. We apologize and continue working. Ivan is mostly staying quiet until he tries to ask for a tool he doesn't know the name for in English, and says the name in Russian. Karen runs out of the laundry room and starts berating Ivan for breaking her rules. Ivan is stumped but mumbles an apology and Karen huffs away in a triumph. A couple of hours later, while running wire, Ivan was drilling through the studs and came in contact with a household electrical wire. A flash and a pop, and Ivan starts cussing in Russian. Immediately, the laundry door bangs open and Karen is standing there. And without missing a beat, Ivan turns to her and switches to English, probably to explain what he is saying. I was amazed by his vocabulary there, and it seemed like he was swearing for a solid minute before starting to run out of choice. Karen turned red and started yelling at us to get out, and I knew there was no saving this dumpster fire, so we just packed up and left. On the road back to the office, I found out Ivan is a fan of English crime and gangster movies, where he learned his share of profanity. Getting back to the office, we got written up, but the boss still had a chuckle. Ivan stayed for a few more months before leaving the company, and I never found out if he realized how malicious his compliance was. As for the customer, I have no idea what ended up happening to her, as I never went back. Oh yeah, God forbid you use Russian in my household, I might learn something. Ooh. I pay for 500 megabytes, I want 500 megabytes. I work on a telecom sales line, but most of our calls are customer care or technical that end up pressing the wrong button because they use a super strange phrasing, so people get confused, and we are obligated to try and sell them things, so most of the job is to just transfer call to other lines. So this lady calls. I want to know how many megabyte I have on my plan. Well, you apparently have 16 gigabytes. But in my contract, it says I have 500 megabytes. Yes, but when you subscribed, you must have gotten some special deal. But don't worry, 16 gigabytes is a lot better than 500 megabytes. The lady then gets really upset, screaming if she pays for 500 megabytes, that's what she wants to have. I ask her to wait till I transfer. I talk to my colleague in customer care before transfer, just to tell her that this is what the customer wants, and to her to not even bother to explain that 16 gigabytes is better than 500 megabytes. Out of curiosity, I took a look at her data usage, and most of their cell phones expend somewhere between 2 to 4 gigabytes, so she will pay at least 20 or 30 euros in extras from now on. No, that can't possibly be right. 500 is bigger than 16. Ugh, I want my 500 right now. I don't do enough work? This story takes place in my current job, so sit back, snuggle up, and prepare for another laugh at the idiots of the world. As I have mentioned in my previous stories, I am the assistant manager in one store of a local chain of bodega gas stations. The only thing missing that would give you the instant bodega feel would be selling Lucy's for 25 cents, a quarter for a square. One of my co-workers is a very young kid who just graduated high school this summer. He is where this story begins. I took up this job back in May of this year, 2019, and have been doing some combination of the strangest shifts that could have only been put together by M. Night Shyamalan. So some days I'm opening the store. When I'm on my day shifts, I attempt to make the night shift employees' lives easier by doing a considerable amount of their shift work before I leave for the day. For example, I sweep, mop, change coffee, vacuum the rugs, take out the trash, clean the parking lot, and stocking tobacco products. We're in dry country, so no alcohol here. I have done my job like this since arriving here, and I do it for everyone. I have never had a complaint until this week. The younger co-worker, who I'm going to call Pitta, since he is as white as bread as it gets, a royal pain in the butt, and because it's not only an acronym but also a real word as well. Pitta decided he was going to throw a holy hell fit about how I do things, and went to the manager about me. His complaints were, I don't do enough work, I don't properly stock anything, and I take too many smoke breaks. Our shifts literally cross over for maybe an hour. He went off on my manager in the most Karen-esque manner believable. Now, me being, well, me, means I don't take stick from anyone, but, big but, my manager is my best friend, so I do my best not to create more issues for her. So it's malicious compliance time. See, if I'm not doing enough work, but I'm doing all his busy work, I suppose it's time for me to focus on tasks that need done, so the manager can go home at a decent hour. It's been a week, and I have done none of his work, but the cooler and paperwork are on point. The best revenge came when just before I had to leave and I looked at him to say, Pitta, the coffee is out of date and burning, you need to change it. That boy hasn't had to do coffee before this week because I'm always doing it for him. The crestfallen look made it completely worth throwing off my schedule. Of course he still complains about me, but my work is beyond reproach and my customers love me. I won in the end. Oh, and today I learned that a Lucy, which I had no idea what meant, is an individual cigarette. So there you go, if you didn't know that, now you do. New time clock rules. Thanks for the overtime. Not sure if this is malicious, but it is compliance. I work for a very large big box store. We are given a 9-minute cushion where we can punch in or out without penalty. So since my shift starts at 1 PM, I can punch in at 12:51 and not be considered early, and can punch at 1:09 without being considered late. The same goes for our end of shift punch outs. My department is encouraged to take the 9 minutes before to get set up before the shift starts. We work in the back room, sorting new product off the delivery trucks. Since we are not allowed to have overtime, we've also been punching out 9 minutes before shift end. My store has recently reorganized the management team, and my department got a new manager. In a department meeting, we were told that we are no longer allowed to punch out at 9:51. It is still allowed by corporate. She feels that we can get a lot of work done in that last 10 minutes. I asked what if we punched in at 12:51. She said, that doesn't matter, the shift ends at 10 PM. You punch out at 10 PM. Okay, fine. First paycheck after this new rule has me with almost 2 hours worth of overtime. Yeah, give it like a month or two and then corporate will be asking questions and that manager will have to make a new rule. Never anger your tattoo artist. Being Friday the 13th, while waiting for my tattoo, I was reminded of a situation a few years ago with my friend Liz, who's my primary artist, and an especially Karen type lady and her Kyle-esque boyfriend, double K for both, who came in to get cheap tattoos. I watched this whole thing go down, but wasn't involved per se. So Liz was doing a quick custom job on me and my buddy Chris. Yes, we got matching tattoos. Star Wars yin and yang for those wondering. I went second so Liz and I could catch up. Double K bypassed the massive line out the door and down the stairs and walked straight up to the artist area to try and skip the line. This was shut down pretty quick and they were told there's a huge wait in front of them and they'll have to go to the back of the line. Well, Double K didn't like this one bit and started to throw a fit. Like, legit tried to pull me out of the chair because he's getting what he wants and I was here first. She wasn't. I was there at 8 AM to help Liz load the orange juice and donuts and the 10 people in the line before me knew this too. Well, one of the artists just finished and said, "I'll take you too." We were all kind of flabbergasted by this, but Liz got this big smug grin on her face, so I knew something was up. I figured the dude would do a terrible job, go too deep, use the wrong needle, something to just mess up their day, but he did none of this. He pulled his flash sheet and said, "Pick one." Karen picks something and he asks where she wants it. Back of her ankle. So dude gets to work freehanding it while Double K keep looking at the line like they won something. Well, they did win something. The smallest tattoo I've ever seen. This thing was no bigger than a dime. From 10 feet away, all I could see was a little black spot on her leg that looked more like a mole than a tattoo. Double K lost it, screaming about him assaulting her and forcing her to get a tattoo, and they're gonna call the cops and all that. Then, they tried to skip out without paying. They were rather impolitely informed that theft of service is a felony and that cops are only 10 minutes away. They tried to pay up the $13, but that's where the guy's brilliance really shone through. His sheet said custom at the top. All custom tattoos were $31. Not only did this lady have a very tiny and very intricately detailed tattoo, she only had a $50 on her, and they had a big sign at the register that simply said no change. Double K ended up paying the shop minimum anyway, but she got her tattoo ahead of the line. I'm really confused as to why there's a huge line at the tattoo. I thought they could take like 6 hours to do one tattoo, so I wouldn't really want to waiting in line for that long. Want to be a tough guy on field day? Not a long post, but a little story for the night. For those of you unaware, field day is a day in military where after work, troops, in my case Marines, clean the ever-loving soul out of their rooms and barracks. Good section heads will go with the looks good, smells good, it must be good policy. My section, however, is not so lucky. For those of you familiar with the military, keep in mind that my entire section has been in the Marines for over 2 years minimum at this point, so we really aren't new anymore. We knew what we were doing, but for some reason on this field day, our section head, not really our section head, but just a slightly less junior guy put in charge of inspecting, PTing, and everything our actual section head doesn't feel like doing, decided to make us field day till way later than we usually do. He wouldn't leave until he found something to fail us on, no matter how long it took. Then, instead of coming to our rooms on his own, he said, "Come get me when you think you're ready." Bet. Our section decided as a whole that we are just going to sit and ride out the night until he either comes to us or gives up and releases us. It's been 3 hours so far since then and nothing yet. Update: 4 hours after we started cleaning, we finally got released. at 10 o'clock at night. He caved and came to us, so it seems like we won that round. On top of that, he couldn't find a thing no matter how hard he looked. Victory for the Junior Marines. I feel like that guy's gonna be just hated by everyone for a long time now. He probably shouldn't have done that. You want it microwaved again? You sure? Okay. Not my story, but one from a guy called Alex, who used to work at the daycare I attended as a child. The law was different back then. Now you need mega qualifications to work with kids here. And he was only about 15 or 16 I think at the time, so I try not to judge him too harshly for his behaviour here. A little boy, let's call him Brian cause I don't know what his name was, wanted something heated up in the microwave. He's probably 6 or 7. Well, we all know that microwaves love to cook the dish and the outer 2% of the food while leaving the rest of the meal cold. Naturally, Brian is unimpressed and demands it be microwaved again and is already crying and shouting from this one incident. Ah, kids. Alex heats it up again. Brian can't see the steam and demands Alex do it again. After a solid 5 minutes of trying to explain to Brian, the food is now hot, just eat it before it gets cold again, and if we heat it up again it will start burning, Alex finally relents and does what the tantruming child demands. Now the food is too hot, and Brian wants it back in the microwave to cool down. A short fuse later, Brian's now on his back on the floor screeching that his food be microwaved again, while poor Alex is trying to figure out how to handle this situation. Where are the adults? This is why we had to change our laws. Anyway, the story ends with Alex giving in and saying, "Fine, I'll microwave it again, if that's what you really want." And the food was just ruined, dried out and burned. This is why we don't let children make their own choices. To me, that sounds like the 6 or 7-year-old is quite knowledgeable. I'm pretty sure I didn't know how microwaves worked until a lot later. But then again, he probably doesn't know how they work because he wanted it to cool down in the microwave. Never mind, I take that back. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.